Hey everybody. Today it started off as a rough day. You know, I was stuck in my head a lot, and I'd figured out, the way to get through this is going to be the same way I got into it. You know, the way I was manipulated through repetition to like put certain things in me, I have to do it the same way to get it out. I have to do repetition. So here lately I had been telling myself, hey, when you start to feel like stuck in your head, like thinking about the relationship and how things went so horribly wrong, I had to keep telling myself like it it wasn't gonna work. It was never meant to work out. We're just too incompatible. We're completely different people. And I had that revelation, talking to myself, and I'll get into that. A little later, because there's a whole story with this. But yeah, I was stuck in my head a lot today, and I couldn't get my studies done because I couldn't focus because, my head kept going. I kept telling myself, like, hey, that's the programming. That's why I couldn't get things done before. And I'm starting to wonder, like, genuinely, when I was getting my shower this morning, um, how much of what I've been going through has been depression and how much has been reaction to what was going on in the relationship, you know, and it's hard to tell. And they both work similarly. They both are like false thoughts programmed into my head that I have to go in and get rid of. I have to, get them out of there. I've done this before. I've done it a million times, and I can, well, not a million, but quite a few, and I can do it again. It sucks. It hurts. But I'm determined. I wrote a post the other day, to say the things that I couldn't say. I was hoping that would help. It did a little bit. It was kind of like a purge, but it wasn't really, what I actually had to say. But I reserved myself, and I'm glad I did because that definitely shifted. But again, I know that's part of what I'm going through. I have to get all that out of my system. I was doing some cleaning this morning, straightening up a few things, and I came across a certain box, and that it held a memory. But before I get too far into this, I almost forgot. I did get before that. I did get my confirmation. I am a full discard. So yeah, that tells me either she found what she was looking for, or she knows I know, like for sure, like she found these videos and knows that, you know. So there was relief in that. Um, in the fact of knowing I'm a full Discord, because now I don't have to look over my shoulder. Like, I don't have to, worry, like, how am I going to react if she shows up and asks for another shot? Like, where I recognize I'm a full discard, I know that's not going to happen, So that was some relief, but then after that, I found this box, and in the box was the ring, and I still remember it was our 7th year anniversary, and she always said she didn't want to be, put on the spot. She didn't want it to be like public, like eyes on her, and she very much stressed that. So that night of our, anniversary of our first date, we went out for ice cream, and unfortunately that night it was windy, because originally I was hoping we were going to sit at the picnic tables, where I would have freedom of movement, and there wasn't. We decided to sit in the vehicle and have our ice cream and talk. But I did end up popping the question there, and she said yes. And then a little while after that is when everything started, the heart attack, and, everything just went downhill from there. It was that first fight where she didn't come to me for like a month. When she did come to me, she finally gave me the ring back, and, we both agreed, at that point, I'd given her the out, but we weren't going to give up, but we just weren't ready yet. And I kind of told myself that 2 things had to be in place before I would give this back. One was I had to get my shit together. I had to be put back together in a way that I could, be there fully, And the other thing was, again, at that point, after she had, like, literally abandoned me for a month, I kind of wanted to see a sign, that told me that I still wanted to go through with, tying myself. And neither of those things happened. Neither. And now this is going to end up in a pawn shop, and, people talk a lot about the, the memories and the, broken dreams that end up in pawn shops, and I realize that this does not represent that. Because I came to the realization that I never actually loved her. And I know, hear me out, I loved the mask that she showed me. I loved the future fake, when she would breadcrumb me and we would sit there at night and talk about, what we want out of the end. She would just mimic, what I wanted to hear. Like, I never even knew who she really was in 11 years. And I'm sitting here heartbroken over losing somebody that I never knew. Not really. It'd be the same thing if I got addicted to one of those, like, AI chatbots or something. Is the vibes it started to give me, when I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, that ain't right. But it's accurate. And another realization, like I said, the times that I was abandoned when I need her, I would come out and say the words, I need you. That last argument, hey, this isn't sitting right with me, talk to me. And I realized, the thing I was begging for consistently, was acknowledgement. That's it. Just acknowledgement. Just, hey, I see you, I hear you, I knew you spoke, I see you exist. That is literally, like quite literally, the bare minimum for human interaction. And she was never able to find it in herself to give me even that. You know? How stupid am I for sitting here and pining over that? I'm still very upset with myself for that, when I had that realization. You know? And it's not going to be because I know I'm going to keep having the thoughts. I know, like I said, it's programmed in there, but now I have a little bit better of a weapon to kind of push them away until I can get through this. But yeah. I just, and something told me that argument, like when I do that thing where I snap my finger and I say it was like that, and I do mean it was literally like that. In that moment, when I sensed the deception and I asked for clarity, and all I got was confusion, and it doesn't matter what that deception could have been. It's the fact that the deception was definitely there. Like, because you don't skirt around something if there's not something to it that you don't want to talk about. And why would you, And the moment I realized, that she could be so callous and straight up try to lie to me like that, she literally went from, my passion to my disgust. And again, I know that sounds, I'm not trying to be mean, but like I kind of decided then, like, you're never going to touch me again. And that goes back to this, if things had ever gone that far, it never would have worked. It never would have worked. This was a trap. If I'd ever given this back to her, I would have been trapping myself. And I know it would make this a lot easier if I would just let myself hate her, but I can't. And don't get me wrong, it has nothing to do with her that I can't hate her. It has all to do with me. I will die before I let hate touch my heart ever again. That's my gift. That's what makes me different, is the fact that I don't let myself go to that place. I have that much control over. And I don't want to go that route. I will sit here and I will suffer and I will go through this, and I prayed about it, and I started to look up a few verses to try but they didn't quite fit what I was looking for. But I think God's letting me sit in this one. Not as punishment, but as a reminder, because, when I got in this relationship, I was supposed to be on a path. And I let this relationship distract me from that path. And that path took me away from my purpose. Well, No, the relationship took me away from my purpose. The path was through my purpose. And I was ready to give all that up for her. I know to some people they're like, they don't care. But the right people know what that means. And again, I have to remind myself, I wasn't going to sacrifice that for her. I was going to sacrifice that for an image, a fake, a hologram, something not real. And that's going to be my kind of go-to when I start getting, in that stinking thinking. That's how I have to do it. I can't. I was hoping it would be different, Is what it is, right? Yeah, we move forward. It's what we have to do each day, Keep moving forward. And again, I keep it in my mind someday. I'm not in a hurry. I'm not looking for anybody. First I need to focus on healing me. But I think I'm well on that path. But sometime in the future, the next ones, I'll be more vigilant. I'll be more aware. And I have a better chance. Again, I can't give up. It's not in me. I'm not allowed to give up. I trust in the plan. I trust when it's all over, things will be where they're meant to be. It just still hurts because I still cling to the fantasy of, what if she had opened up to me? Like, what if she'd actually let me in? What if she had told me the truth? Could I have helped? I mean, look at the gifts that I have. I mean, I would have been willing to try. But my dumbass just kept giving chance after chance and letting it slide. I take back what I said the other day. I wish that, the other day I said I wish that, when I gave her the first out, that I had just forced the out on her and ended it there. And I take that back. I wish that I knew then what I know now. And I would have handled that differently. But again, the past is the past. I can't change it. I can't do anything about it. See, there I am in that stinking thinking again. I had to beat myself out of that years ago. It's frustrating. Things I already thought I took care of are coming back because of, this programming to kind of keep me stuck in place and beating myself up. I'll get through it. I always do. One nice thing about it is, I did make it to Bible study tonight. And I went in and I was honest. I said, look, guys, I've been distracted. I did not do the work this week. I did start it. I did have some of the answers, but I didn't go through all of it. And they said, that's fine. You showed up. Absolutely. And I will continue to, because that is what's important to me. That is my intent. You know, that's what makes me feel whole, is being in the church and being involved and working on that relationship that I have with God. You know, I commented a friend on Facebook earlier today. You know, I let my best friend slide to go try and impress a chick that was not going to be impressed with me to begin with. Like, how not cool is that? So I got to go back and repair that relationship, and I'm working on it. Because that's the one that, you know, is real. That's the relationship that's going to have an end result. Hey, there's a nice little revelation. Took me a little while to come to that, but you got to see it live here. Figured that one out. Yeah. Slowly I'm coming back. I am. I went out shopping today. Had a doctor's appointment, which I'll talk about when I do the other video, because that was a whole other story. But I went into a couple stores, you know, while we were out running around doing those errands. And, you know, I went on the 9th to the paranormal circus thing with some friends of mine who I haven't heard from since. Flying monkeys everywhere. But, you know, I was in that crowd with the bangs and the noise, and I was fine. You know, I went into the stores today. I walked around, I looked at things. You know, I helped them find a few things. My social anxiety is gone. You know, that stuff that had me not wanting to go out and do stuff. And I still firmly believe that that was all tied to what I was picking up off of her. That wasn't mine to begin with. I don't think it was. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think it goes away without, you know, figuring a few things out. And don't get me wrong, I've got a few things figured out, but no, I don't think I'm quite that skilled. Like that was an actual breakthrough there. So, and that breakthrough was triggered by my breakup. So again, you know, I can sincerely, in all genuine, thank her for breaking my heart, because that was what I needed to snap me out of the other thing, you know. So even in all this, you know, not caring that she hurt me, she did help me. She really did. I know it wasn't intentional, but it did work out that way. I wish it could have been better. But again, you know, wish in one hand, shit in the other, see which one fills up first. I can't change it. I can't do anything about it. And I definitely, you know, can't live like that. So now I have to keep building the new me, you know. Alright, I rambled enough. This one's almost half hour long. Originally I was going to try and start shortening some of these on this one, but again, I'm still working things out, and when I work it out, I gotta let it flow natural. I can't rush it. But I promise the other one I'm about to do is going to be quite a bit shorter. Alright, so, you know, for now, take care of yourself, take care of each other. I'll see you in the next one.